Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address the issue of the recent bomb threat at Cienega. Last week's events were alarming, and it's crucial that we reflect on what occurred. As a witness to the incident, I can attest to the confusion and lack of preparedness that unfolded during the lockdown and subsequent evacuation. It's concerning to note that Cienega had only conducted one lockdown drill this school year, falling short of the Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, DEMA, requirements, which mandates 3 lockdown drills annually. Similarly, the absence of accountability measures, such as ensuring students remain with their teachers during the evacuation, raises serious safety concerns. Furthermore, the failure to adhere to emergency response competencies outlined by DEMA and the apparent lack of regular communication and training regarding emergency procedures is deeply troubling. The safety of our students should be paramount, as underscored by the VUSD mission statement emphasizing a safe and nurturing school environment. The disregard for these protocols not only violates state law, but also jeopardizes the well-being of everyone on campus. It is evident that immediate action is needed to be addressed and deficiencies and prevent similar incidences from occurring in the future. As responsible stakeholders, we must demand accountability and transparency from school administration and district officials. We cannot afford to compromise on the safety and security of our children. It is imperative that the necessary steps are taken to rectify these shortcomings, including comprehensive staff training, regular drills, and clear communication protocols. Ultimately, we cannot overlook the gravity of the situation or allow such lapses in safety protocols to persist. Our children deserve better, and it's incumbent upon us to ensure that they're provided with a learning environment that prioritizes their well-being above all else. Thank you for your attention to this matter, and I urge you to join me in advocating for the implementation of robust safety measures to safeguard the lives of our students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to Mr. Carruth, who will kind of give a presentation, and that presentation may answer some of the questions, concerns, and then we can dive into some of those questions.
Thank you, President Tippett, members of the board. This is an inform item. And just a couple of prefaces on this. I'm going to go over some things at a higher level. We can drop into some details. I just want to also acknowledge it isn't prudent to get into specific details of planning, emergency planning, and plans in a public setting. If we want to do that, we can do something at an executive session level and go into those in more detail. That said, I'll try and be as descriptive as I can related to this particular incident as it unfolded. So in front of you, all you have a binder of information that has been compiled since last Tuesday surrounding the bomb threats that were called in to 3 separate schools over a period of about 10 or 15 minutes. And so I just want to begin by going over some basic information or facts about the day, the afternoon as unfolded. First of all, we had roughly 4,000 staff and students were impacted by those calls. They comprised of roughly 2,000 students and staff at Cienega High School, another 200 students and staff at Vail Inclusive Preschool, roughly 800 students and staff at Desert Sky Middle School, 900 students and staff at Empire High School, and another 100 students at the Vail Innovation Center. Further, we had 2 different responding law enforcement agencies with TPD taking jurisdiction of those schools in the city, and Pima County Sheriff's Department taking the lead in their jurisdiction for the school for Cienega High School, which lies in the county. We also were contacted almost immediately by media groups, and we're working with that process. There was adding to the confusion of that was what was an unrelated event at Raytheon regarding a suspicious package. who knew that timing could happen, but I think that also led to some of the initial concern that was felt. Later in the evening, I want to be clear, after the event, an arrest was made of a 15-year-old and who later admitted to making the prank calls. So just some timelines of the events. And I also want to acknowledge a couple of other things as I go through this binder. Mr. Kevin Carney and Mrs. Erin Cavazos helped pull together the document that's here from notes. And Mr. Carney and I were instrumental in helping to lead things through from the district standpoint. He was really, as he will note, I think we looked in about an hour and a half time period. He received and or made almost 70 phone calls in coordinating this event. So as the event unfolded, the first call came in at about 11:55 to Desert Sky Middle School. It was a bomb threat made by a person on the phone. The TPD arrived on that campus 10 minutes later. As a result, at 12 o'clock, the Empire High School received the first of what was 3 calls. The person called back 3 separate times to 3 different lines. They just happened to have TPD officers on campus at that time. So there was an immediate response at Empire High School. Cienega High School received a threat, the same verbal threat at about 12:10. And their school resource officer, who's a Pima County Sheriff's deputy, was actually in the front office and called that number back. And the person answered the phone at 12:10. So one of the confusing issues with coordinating between the 2 law enforcement agencies was the immediate response and differing direction from those agencies on what the next steps were. So we immediately coordinated and asked them to please coordinate their actions so that we had consistency across all 3 school sites, which they did, which resulted in evacuation of those buildings, the request for evacuation in those buildings. It's important to note that the first thing that we drill and that we must do in an event like this is to take action, and it's to take action to follow the direction of the law enforcement officers and where to move students as they're on in this instance in regard to a bomb threat. We take their direction on what that looks like. As I mentioned, there's differing protocol for differing agencies about what that looks like. So yeah, it's just something we have to deal with in that moment. The other thing I want to acknowledge, and I mentioned this last week, there is always going to be a gap in time between the ability to take the necessary steps of taking action and then the ability to clearly and accurately communicate with staff, students, and parents as we're ensuring the safety of kids. And I feel really strongly, and it's probably the greatest frustration in that moment, that there's nothing that can be done in that balance of time that hangs there that can't be done to reduce concern or anxiety when we're communicating something to take action. We can't communicate what we know at that point, and we know that people are concerned, even whether it's 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or 30 minutes. That time hangs in the balance. But as must we do to make sure that people are safe and where they need to be. The other component of that, every incident has its own context. And I've been doing this for a long time, and we have responded numerous times to bomb threats over the years, and each one has. What is really difficult to broadly communicate is we knew from the moment those calls were made that it was extremely likely that the call was being made as a prank. That does not mean that we don't then follow up and take action, but we knew that that was highly likely. In fact, we knew the phone number. We were able to track the home of where that person was within the first 10 minutes of the call, and that resulted in the arrest of that person and admitting to doing that later that evening. I make that statement in context to this process because I think knowing that and driving and working behind the scenes in regards to communication and moving students around also likely colored the way that the event unfolded for the rest of the time period. So from 11:55 to roughly 12:10, the calls were made. The action was taken, and then the first communication went out. If you flip, you have a communication timeline, went out at 12:29 when Cienega sent an email and posted to their social media to parents. And then we made both a text and an email to parents at CHS, EHS, and Desert Sky Middle School at 12:40. I just want to pause and acknowledge that we use the communication that we have available to us, that's provided to us. I also want to acknowledge, and I'll get more into this later, but that it's a system that we probably need to test at least once a year, maybe twice a year, with parents to make sure that we've got their accurate information, both so that goes to both text and email. You can see a long list of communications over the next hour to 2 hours. We made over 20 separate and distinct communications out to staff, students, and parents. Not all of them to those groups at all the time, but you can see what that looks like over the time period in an attempt to get the information out to folks as best we could with the information that we had. Beginning at 1:30, the Pima County Sheriff's Department cleared all of the buildings at Cienega and certified it, and VIP and certified it for return. Why there was a difference in time period between the county's ability to clear Cienega and the city's ability to clear the two city schools had to do with Pima County was dealing with one bomb threat. The Tucson Police Department were dealing with our two and an incident at Raytheon simultaneously. They just didn't have the resources to get there. So we were able to resolve the Cienega High School situation quicker, and students were able to return to the rest of their day. And we communicated that information out to parents at 1:37, 1:35. Because of the length of time, we were given the directive from the Tucson Police Department to evacuate Empire High School, to move those students to another campus. That ended up being moving them to Esmond Station, and which we did. Empire High School was cleared at 3 o'clock and given an all clear to return. Desert Sky Middle School, there was initial conversation about moving them to Desert Willow Elementary School and then Purple Heart Park, back and forth between us and the incident command from TPD. Ultimately, upon conclusion of those discussions, it was determined that they were going to be able to to clear the buildings before dismissal at Desert Sky. So there was a determination not to move them and keep them outside until the conclusion. So they would simply dismiss and reduce confusion for parents at that site. Also in the binders, you can see there's a communication timeline events and what that looks like. I'm happy to go through any of those things. Those are all things we can I'm happy to talk about publicly. We continued the communication into the evening with the final parent email going out around actually 3:59 and 4 o'clock, and then some wrap up later in the evening to staff and to the board. And then the following day, I communicated with the staff at the respective schools that were impacted. And then again, in my weekly communication to staff on Friday. So we have spent time since last Tuesday evaluating our practice, as we do every time we have an incident like that. And we learn something every time we go through an incident. And one thing I have noticed and is true over doing this now for over 20 years in this capacity is in helping to coordinate and manage responses, is that each situation is dynamic, each situation changes, and also protocols change. In other words, what was prudent and right 10 years ago doesn't necessarily apply and is prudent and right today. And so some of those things need to continue to be updated. So we have, just so you know, we have done a debrief with all of our administrative staff that were involved with those incidences yesterday for a 3-hour period of time. We debriefed with all of our leadership team earlier today on the incident and got feedback. We're obviously doing this tonight here at the board meeting. And then on Thursday, a smaller group of us, taking that feedback, are meeting with representatives from Pima County Sheriff and Tucson Police Department to go through what we have learned and also to gain and seek clarity around a couple of issues that were germane to the response and incident command in particular. So some things I think it's prudent to talk about, things that we learned through this and things that we'll be working on. That the parent unification process has changed. The need for that has changed over the last several years. As I mentioned at the onset of this, when there is a non-drill that occurs now, and parents get notice generally from their students in the gap between our ability to communicate and with them. We have a number of parents who drop what they're doing and go to the site. And that is creating a process for us that we need to manage that better. Frankly, we have to manage the ability to handle parents who are coming to the school site. That takes time and staff to do that. But that's something that we need to organize better and communicate better what the unification procedures are. I don't think that that's going to change fundamentally, certainly not in the near term. So it's just something that we acknowledge needs to be done and done in a thoughtful, caring way. So that's one thing we know we need to be able to do. Some of the other pieces that we are looking at is make sure that we have cleaner and tighter communication between the smaller sites that exist on our larger school sites at our high schools, in particular Vail Innovation Center and the Vail Inclusive Preschool. It wasn't necessarily a long lag between there, but there was a lag in communication between what we were communicating to larger sites and what we were communicating to those smaller ancillary sites. The other pieces, and I don't want to get into details because I think this will dive into more of the plan piece, but there were some challenges dealing with 2 different law enforcement responding agencies. All of the law enforcement officers were great. Please hear me say that. It wasn't that. It was just, and we're great. We're incredibly appreciative of our relationships with all of those responding agencies and the people who were there, and frankly, many of them have children in our school district as well. Wasn't that, it's just managing different directions and getting clarity on who is the incident command as incident commander changes through a period of time. There's been questions around communication. I just want to again acknowledge we have the ability to both email and text from a central location to parents based on the information we have. One of the things we learned in this is if the information is too long, it may get rejected by the text function. So we may need to split that into two pieces. I think our biggest takeaway, though, is to run an annual or biannual communication test with parents to ensure that they're getting an alert. And that it's their opportunity to provide us with good working email and or cell phone numbers that they can have where they can receive those alerts. Texting with staff, we're looking at some of those different pieces and what we might be able to do. We've tried a couple of different applications, and frankly, those applications have been too cumbersome to work effectively in a fast-moving situation. So we're looking for some simple solutions to be able to text and communicate more effectively and directly with our staff. The ability, part of the challenge with that, frankly, is our staff changes almost. Well, certainly on a monthly basis, we have new staff, and we have staff that leave us and staff that is new staff. So it is a constant. It needs to be dynamic enough that it's flexible enough that we can we that. So those are other things that we're working on. As far as drills go, I just will simply say this: we continue to monitor and ensure that drills are happening in our schools. I will tell you, in going through this, we uncovered a couple of places where drills weren't happening as they should be, and we're going to ensure that they happen as they're scheduled to, and make sure that they're followed up with. We have the people in the places. We have the people in place to make sure that happens. We just need to make sure that that is actually being done and taken care of. Largely, I want to communicate on that topic. Largely, all of our schools are doing exactly what that needs to take place. I think for us, some kind of follow-up action steps are reviewing with our leadership team the role of incident command and what that means, and how their role is to interact with incident command and interact with our local incident command. When any incident like this happens, there's a response at the site, and there's an immediate response for those not at the site. We convene in my office. We've got a protocol and procedure that we work through to help coordinate. We should be anticipating beyond the event, and also assisting with communication so that the site administration can be dealing with managing what's on the ground. So we'll be reviewing those things. As I mentioned, we'll be reviewing the drill expectations and record keeping, evacuation procedures. I think the other kind of a newer step is beefed up parent reunification process, making sure that we have as up-to-date parent information as possible. And frankly, that's a shared responsibility. It's a responsibility for us, and it's a responsibility for parents. We want to make sure that we've got go bags that are stocked with some bottles of water. This is an issue we've gone back and forth with over the years. Water goes bad in bottles over time, so keeping enough on site for this is something that's just a logistical challenge that we need to manage. And how do we do that? But how do we have enough to be able to get us through? Frankly, we tried to get water to our sites, but because of the traffic volume of people trying to get to the schools, our staff is unable to get there in a timely way. I mentioned the communication test. And also our staff at the front office who answered those phone calls did a tremendous job. We have some scripts available to help and get that are part of the federal response to help them keep the person engaged. Ultimately, that happened to the point where we were able to, as I mentioned, quickly identify who the caller was. And he was immediately interviewed and admitted to doing what he did. And I think, so that just kind of covers some of the basic pieces within the binder that you have. Again, there's more detail in here that I think is probably best if you want to hold an executive session more on the details, but it's available for you to look at. Also, there's an appendix that has the transcripts and emails of each of the communications that was sent, that's referenced in the front part by timestamp, and what those things look like, and where they went. Also in the binder is some of the log drills for those respective drills. And I think I will stop there and see if you have any questions. I may ask Mr. Carney to come up and help with any of the additional pieces. He was was instrumental, as was Mrs. Debbie Penn and several others, in helping to coordinate across the sites.
Thank you, Mr. Carruth. So this is an informed item, opportunity to discuss any comments or questions from board members? Mr. King.
Yes, I'd like to see if we can schedule an executive session to discuss a little more on the specific site.
We could do that. Mrs. Pratt.
I want to say thank you for this binder. This is a lot of information. And it's helpful also just so that when we go home and we're thinking about things, we could go back to this, and it's laid out very well. So thank you very much for that.
I just want to again acknowledge Mr. Carney for pulling that together and taking the time to put it in a very readable format.
Yeah. It's almost like Morgan Freeman. When I was reading this in Kevin's voice. I do have a question though. On the drills, I'm trying to figure out, so some of them say training and then some of them just say drills. So are the training ones, is that with staff only, or is that, or can you just clarify what, kind of how to read those drill logs?
Yes, there are some staff trainings that occur without students, and there are frankly some drills that also occur without students. Some of our sites in coordination with law enforcement will often drill lockdown drills without students present, because it allows them to have more realistic kind of threats that go around the campus, and then they can live discuss where to go and what that looks like. So, yes.
So for Empire, for example, they have a training on 8/7/23, but then November 13th. So I'm assuming that the one in August was with teachers, and then the one in November was with students. Is that correct?
I don't know for certain. I
Okay.
can find out exactly
Okay.
what that looks like. Yeah, I don't know for certain. We have to get that clarified.
No worries. This is really helpful information though. Thank you.
Yep.
Mrs. Anderson.
So on the drills, who's like tracking, like where does this go? Like this information? Like is there somewhere where you guys, they log it, like where the district sees it?
Yeah, our safety director, Mr. Matt Bean, keeps the logs and coordinates with the sites on making sure that those drills are happening.
Okay.
I'm almost certain.
Thank you. Trying to see if it's better if we conversate during the
Executive session.
executive session, but initially, I know we practice the CSTAC method on a regular basis. But I guess more so my question is, have we had, let's say, a tabletop exercise that incorporated both law enforcement agencies that responded, Pima County, as well as Tucson Police Department in the past?
So let me, thank you, Mr. Buster. Let me address both of those because I just want to be clear. So the CSTAG is a threat assessment, just for those who are listening, may not be familiar with what CSTAG is. All of our staff have been trained on the CSTAG as a threat assessment. It's a preventative tool. Actually, we're the only school district in Pima County that has trained all of our staff on that as part of, so the one of the most robust prevention tactics for any incident of school violence is to have a robust threat assessment in place and robust relationships with kids. And so we have put a boatload of energy into that because frankly, it's one of the best things we can do. So yes, to your answer, we've done that CSTAG training. It's been implemented. Across our sites. And when a student presents a situation that warrants a threat assessment, we're able to execute that both internally and if it's warranted, communicate with law enforcement and or mental health agencies. And I can tell you just from having gone through that we've had great responses both with parents and with responding agencies if when there's been a situation that we've had to go through that process. So it's really a matter of getting young people help in a timely manner. That's helped cut that down. To your point about doing a joint exercise or table talk exercise with mixed groups, I would say the answer is no, not really. And I think that that's something having done this for a long time, this is the first time we had something called in multiple jurisdictions of the same kind of event that I'm aware of. There is a couple of holes. Frankly, the other responding agency that wasn't involved in this was fire. And there's a couple of things that I think we need to make sure that law enforcement and fire are on the same page in regard to a responding incident that came to light as a result of this. So nothing bad or anything. I don't want to get into the detail of that, but it's one of those things like fire has control over something. I don't think they're sharing that information with law enforcement. And when law enforcement was asking for that thing, we're like, well, the fire department has that information. You should have that information. No, they don't have that information. So those are the kinds of conversations that we need to enter in with them. I can tell you over the last year and a half that the